The exorcism of David, a terrifying encounter. The small town of Willow Creek was shaken to its core when news spread of a young man named David who was believed to be possessed by a malevolent spirit. The townspeople whispered in fear and disbelief as they tried to make sense of the strange occurrences that had been happening in David's presence. Multiple perspectives emerged as the story of David's possession unfolded. Some believed it was simply a case of mental illness, while others were convinced that something supernatural was at play. The local priest, Father Thomas, was called upon to perform an exorcism in an attempt to rid David of the evil entity that had taken hold of him. As Father Thomas prepared for the exorcism, he was joined by a team of experts in the field of demonology. They gathered at David's home, a sense of unease hanging heavy in the air. The room was filled with the sound of prayers and incantations as Father Thomas began the ritual to drive out the demon. From David's perspective, he felt as though he was trapped in a nightmare. He could hear the voices of the priests chanting around him, their words echoing in his mind. He struggled against the invisible force that seemed to be holding him captive, his body contorting in unnatural ways. The townspeople gathered outside, their faces filled with a mixture of curiosity and fear. They could hear the sounds of the exorcism coming from inside the house, the cries of David mingling with the prayers of the priests. Some crossed themselves in silent prayer, while others whispered dark rumors of what might be happening behind closed doors. As the exorcism continued, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Father Thomas and his team fought against the powerful entity that had taken hold of David, their voices growing louder and more urgent. Suddenly, there was a deafening roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the house. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. The room fell silent, the only sound the heavy breathing of those present. David lay on the floor, his body still and his eyes closed. Father Thomas knelt beside him, a look of exhaustion and relief on his face. The townspeople held their breath, waiting for a sign that the exorcism had been successful. Slowly, David opened his eyes, a look of confusion and fear in them. But as he sat up, a sense of peace seemed to wash over him. The demon had been banished, and David was free once more. The news of the exorcism spread quickly through Willow Creek, sparking a mix of awe and terror among the townspeople. Some saw it as a miraculous event, proof of the power of faith and prayer. Others whispered of darker forces at play, warning of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. But for David, the experience had left him changed. He knew that he had faced something truly evil, and that he had emerged victorious. And as he looked out at the faces of the townspeople who had gathered to witness his ordeal, he knew that he would never be the same again.